Hello everyone. I want to talk about the importance of prop walk today, and I've set the camera up here in the cockpit facing back, facing aft, so you can see how very little space I have here, particularly at the Royal Cape, for getting in and out of my mooring. So you can see the fairway is very narrow. You can see the other boat here is in fact almost, this boat's 45 foot. So that fairway up to the stern of the boat directly behind me, Aquila, is probably, if I'm lucky, it's 45 foot, but I think it's actually slightly less. So I can't even reverse straight out. So prop walk is critical, but I've got one problem. The prop walk generally will kick me to port, but I can't use the prop walk on this boat because I've got Zingaro right next to me here. So I'm going to show you. You can see there, all along here. So you can see how little space I have for getting in and out of the mooring. So prop walk becomes critical. Now I've opened the engine compartment, and I'm going to show you what I mean and what's important to look out for. So you can see the propeller is turning clockwise. So we're facing aft. In other words, I'm going forward, the propeller is going to swing clockwise, and the boat will turn to port. Now, when I put in reverse, the prop walk is going to kick me to port, so it's going to be in the opposite direction. So just stay a moment. Now you can see the propeller is in reverse. Okay? So what will happen with the prop walk? Let's just move outside up the companionway. So if I'm going in reverse, the propeller, the stern, will kick to port. So ideally I would want to use my prop walk to get in and out of this mooring, especially when I reverse. The trouble is I can't use my prop walk because my bow is too long, my boat's too long. I'm going to be hitting Zingaro next to me here. So I have to go against the prop walk, and there's a trick involved in this. So generally what I do, let me just put it in neutral. I spin the helm all the way to port. So now what's happening is my rudder is pointing in that direction. My rudder is pointing in that direction. And what I do is I have a very short spring here. I cast off all the other lines and I keep the one bow line on, and I get one of my crew members to pull me into that left hand corner. I ease the little boat a little bit away from the jetty so I can reverse out in that direction very, very slowly. But I have to be very careful to not use too much power, because the prop walk is going to kick me in the opposite direction regardless of where the rudder is pointing. So it's quite a tricky maneuver, and this prop walk becomes critical, especially when you're in narrow fairways like we've got here at the Royal Cape. So if you're motoring down, once you know what your prop walk's doing, and you're motoring down a narrow fairway like this, you would never turn to port if you wanted to do a 360-degree turn. You would always use the prop walk provided your propeller is turning clockwise when you're going forward and anti-clockwise when you're going in reverse. You would always do your turn, a sharp turn or 360-degree turn to starboard in a narrow fairway that you can use to use your prop walk to full effect. So I'm going to show you that in due course. This was just a preparation for the little video that I wanted to show you. So here's a quick recap on the prop walk. Prop walk refers to the direction of the propeller and the thrust that it moves the boat, whether you're going forward or whether you're going reverse. And it's important to know whether your prop walk is going to kick your stern to port or to starboard when you reverse. Most boats, like this one on Chantecler, turn clockwise when going forward, so the boat will spin to the left, and the moment I put it in reverse, she'll kick the stern to port. So you would ideally want to use that prop walk, but as I've shown you, the narrow fairways here make it impossible for me to use my my prop walk effectively, because I've got a boat very close to me on the starboard side. So as I'm going to reverse out, my bow and my anchor is going to rip his guardrail to shreds and cause major havoc. So I've got to go against the prop walk on this boat, which means I turn my rudder 45 to 60 degrees to port, so I'm already pointing the rudder in the direction that I want to go. Then I get somebody to pull the bow into the corner, the left hand corner, so the boat's already angled at about 30 degrees if I can make it. If on my own, I just motor forward and then do the thing on my own. But I then slowly give a little bit of reverse power, because if I give too much reverse power, she's going to kick in the opposite direction to what I want. She's going to kick to port, whether my rudder's pointing to starboard or not. It makes no difference. So I've got to just give a little bit of movement in the propeller to be able to get the water to flow over the keel and to push against the rudder to start turning the boat so that the bow starts moving in the direction that I want it to go. And then as I'm reversing out, so I go against the prop walk, I reverse out backwards into the fairway, then I go forward and I can move out. So it's quite tricky, and it's a critical component in close quarter maneuvering. So at day skipper level, I teach my students that regularly. They need to know what their prop walk's doing on the boat and how to make use of it maximally for full effect. Otherwise you can come horribly unstuck, and before you know it, you've crashed into all sorts of boats and you don't know what you're doing. Okay, so I'll show you the practical in due course. Okay, so we're looking at the engine compartment. The engine's running, but it's not engaged. So you'll see the prop shaft. You can see there's the engine now engaged forward. So you can see the prop shaft is turning to starboard. So the boats would be going forward. Engine going forward. So I'm going to show you what happens now when we put the engine in reverse. So we pass it through neutral,